And welcome to another edition of the A-List Podcast. I am your host, Sherrod Blakely, with the co-host, with the most, Kwani A. Lunis. How you doing, Kwani?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing incredibly well because I've had an incredibly, amazingly, I wouldn't say awesome, just pretty damn lucky kind of day. As you know, I'm out here in LA covering the Celtics. They play the Lakers on Tuesday. They play the Clippers on Wednesday. So I've been out here. I got out here Sunday, but today was unlike any day I've had out west in ever.
What happened?
I'm in my car, and I'm heading back to my hotel after Celtics availability this afternoon, and there's a car to my right that sideswipes another car. Ooh. And the car that gets or it's not side, but got T-boned.
Okay.
And that car that got T-boned starts to veer in my lane. And I'm seeing it coming my way. And so I immediately switch out of the lane. And thankfully, there was no traffic in the lane that I quickly shifted into. And the car that got hit then sideswiped the car that was in front of me. So long story short, within could have been no more than maybe 4 seconds, the car behind me got T-boned, car in front of me got sideswiped. And that was kind of pretty much my day in a nutshell.
Was everyone okay? Did everyone come out?
Yeah, but man, I mean, it's crazy how, because I was thinking about this, and me and the guy who got sideswiped who was in front of me, we were talking about this after it happened. He was just like, damn, you were incredibly lucky today because you were within a second of either getting T-boned or getting sideswiped. And so I'm feeling incredibly blessed and incredibly fortunate to be here, not for any other reason than the fact that, you just never know how those things can play out.
Absolutely. It could have been.
You never know. So yeah. I'm feeling a little bit more, blessed to kind of be able to do the podcast and then talk about like what I call first world problems. Like, why can't the Celtics win more games? Why Jaylen Brown keep holding up with that damn hamstring? What's going on? Those are first world problems. And days like this remind me that, we absolutely have to talk about this stuff. But then when you start looking at the big picture, they kind of fall into that first world problem silo.
Not that important, in the long term. But you were at practice, as you mentioned, and you did have a chance to speak to the players and coaches after that practice. What did you learn today?
Well, we spoke to a couple of players. We spoke to Aaron Nesmith, who was coming off a real big game in Portland where he was knocking down shots, which, as I, politely remind him, that's kind of why they drafted you. So it was good for him to see those shots go down. He talked about that. We talked with Marcus Smart a little bit about just really the way this team is just kind of really pivoted of late and just the key to sustaining this really good play. And they're feeling good about that. And obviously we talked to head coach Ime Udoka just about the team in general. Obviously got an update on Jaylen Brown, who's questionable with that hamstring. I don't get the sense that we will see him here in LA playing. I don't really get a sense that there's this sense of urgency to bring him back, and partly because, one, hamstrings are to me, it's a roll of the dice kind of injury. You really don't know how long that thing is going to take to heal. I've dealt with a number of players who've had hamstring injuries, and there really is no rhyme or reason as to when that hamstring is going to be healthy enough for the guys to come back and it not become an issue. And there is a sense that the Celtics, again, the timing wasn't right for him to come back when he did, as far as that hamstring being 100% healthy. Every time you ask Ime about Jaylen, he reiterates the fact that they're not going to rush him back. They want him to be 100% healthy. And that is, to me, it's a low-key but not in-your-face way of saying he wasn't 100% when he came back, and we're not going to run that risk again. And fortunately for him, the Celtics have been pretty damn good filling in the gap without having a guy like Jaylen Brown available. And there's a lot of guys who have really kind of stepped their games up. But one thing he did just kind of putting, closing that book on an injury note, Al Horford, he should be back in the lineup for the Lakers, as well as Romeo Langford should be available, which, again, that's a good thing for the Celtics team, because the Lakers, I mean, they look kind of like trash right now, if we're being honest.
Kind of like that, yes.
They do.
You're right.
As long as LeBron James has air in his lungs and he can play the damn game.
They won't
I don't put anything past that team of just really, playing one of their better games. And let's be honest, they got embarrassed in Boston. They got their asses whipped badly. And you better believe LeBron James ain't forgot about that. And you better believe Anthony Davis and company are mindful of that. And so the Celtics, they're really going to have to play, I would say, as good, if not better, than they did when they beat the Lakers, back at the TD Garden. And how they played most recently against Portland, where, the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the game, it was like something I've never seen this team do, where they made 14 of their first 15 shots, which is unheard of. Guys in an open gym who are really good shooters aren't that efficient. And you had everyone jacking up shots and knocking them down then. So the Lakers game is going to be tough. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
And an irrelevant fact, this is also the first game where that building will not be named the Staples Center.
I'm still getting. It's going to take me a while.
I'm still calling it the Staples Center.
Damn man, that my mama called it the Staples Center, and I'm going to call it the Staples Center until someone says you can't call it the Staples Center no more.
Precisely.
Crypto, or whatever. Not crypto. That's the other one.
Crypto.com. I think that's it.
I just can't get.
It's too long of a word. Not a fan.
Oh yeah.
They're paying money to have that name there, obviously. But
and it doesn't kick in until Christmas, so it doesn't. So we good.
Yeah, it's a nameless building technically until December 25th.
Wow.
The
orphan. We should call it the orphan arena because they ain't got no family. They ain't got no home. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a really good game, and a big part of that game is a big part of every game for the Celtics. Jason Tatum. He's been playing quite well lately. What's your take on what Jason is doing right now that stands out?
I think he plays well every other episode. So I don't know if it's us. I just want more consistency. But as you mentioned, on this West Coast trip, he's looked really good. And obviously, when you talk about Jason Tatum, a lot of times you hear the conversation of Kobe and how that's been someone he's looked up to. And I think it's fair to say that every LA game that they have against the Lakers, he definitely brings a different type of energy to those games because of various reasons. So I think he'll play well against the Lakers, but they just need to close out that West Coast trip and come back and bring that consistency to the TD Garden as well.
Yeah, the one thing about the Celtics lately is that they've been really good at both ends of the floor. Their offense has been, probably top 5, top 10 the last 10 or so games. Defense has been really, really good for the last few weeks. And so the ability to impact the game at a high level, both ends of the floor, is a big part of why this team is successful. And it's a big part of why they have been able to really be successful without having a Jaylen Brown in the mix, because they've got so many other guys that have stepped up and contribute. We joke around about Grant Williams for the longest time, but damn it, Grant is putting in some work. Grant, he has been, statistically speaking, flirting with that 50, 40, 90, stat line, which is really one of the hardest stat lines for any NBA player to have throughout for like a month, let alone an entire season. And yet Grant, his numbers have been, for the most part, pretty consistent as far as being a guy shooting around 50% from the field, around 40% from three-point range, and 90% from the free throw line. And there are lots of theories about why he's doing that. And I've tried to keep the cookies on the bottom shelf when you talk about Grant. Okay. And it's really, he's like literally making wide open shots. And as much as, you want to say, Ime might be coming up with strategy and Tatum is getting him the ball. No, he's just making open shots. And as crazy as it sounds, that's the secret sauce to what he's doing. Now,
and you made the point a few episodes ago that these teams haven't put him into their game plan. So they're still just like, we'll give him one shot. Okay, we'll give him 2 shots. And then 5, 6, 7 shots later, then they realize, maybe we should guard Grant. But it's too late by then.
Yeah, they're treating Grant like his name is Sherrod Blakely or something out there. Just let him shoot. Let that dude shoot. We ain't got to worry about him. As a matter of fact, as soon as he shoot, we're going to the basket to get the rebound. That's how they're treating Grant. And the level of disrespect that they're giving Grant is I love it, because he's making so many teams look silly.
Yeah.
How you gonna leave a guy open with 6, 7, 8 shots a night and he's making like 5? How you gonna do that?
Like, it doesn't make sense.
Well, and I tell you what, Portland, they tried to do a little bit of adjustment, but then Grant, and this is the thing about Grant that I think as the season progresses, we may be seeing more and more of this. Grant had a counter to the wide open shot, and he had the ball, was wide open, took a little longer than I thought he should have, gave a little head fake, guy comes flying at him, 2 dribbles, baseline jumper. I'm thinking, wait a minute, Grant, 2 dribble pull up floater in the baseline. Where the hell
I'm
did that come
expanding
from?
my game.
Exactly. And so Grant has done an amazing job of just really expanding his game and starting to show signs that, we talk a lot about him knocking on open shots, but it seems as though he's got a plan when teams are starting to try to defend him on other ways that he can impact scoring. And he's always been a really good passer to begin with. But it's really good to see him be more than just a warm body on the floor. He's actually making shots. He's defending, I think, a little bit better. Defense, I don't like when he gets switched out on guards because, bless his heart, he tries. He really does. But he has a lot of trouble in that. I think he still has more trouble in that than I'm feeling comfortable with. But who hasn't really had a lot of trouble? Dennis Schroder.
Yeah, he comes up a lot on this episode, on this podcast as well. We have our MVPs this season already.
Right now, I don't know if I would say he's the MVP because Tatum is, he's pretty good.
No, I'm not saying he is, but we have our favorites when we talk on this.
Our podcast MVP is probably Schroder.
Yeah.
Probably Schroder. He's probably the MVP. Most improved, Grant Williams.
Yes. We should give out awards.
Yeah. Best, most liked, probably Marcus Smart. At least that's for me. I love Marcus.
Most liked by the podcast?
What's that?
Most liked by the podcast or by... Okay, I can see that.
Or Al, maybe Al.
Yeah, that's a bias.
It is. I go front.
Right.
There is. But back to Schroder. Schroder is playing really, really well. He's done it as a starter. He's done it coming off the bench. And I'm just trying to get a sense of how is this all going to look when you got all your pieces healthy, where you've got Jaylen back in the mix and you got Al playing more, and you're looking to get Romeo out there a few more minutes. How is Schroder going to adjust or adapt to maybe not having as much PT as he's got right now?
That's his strength, though. The fact that he has been able to adjust, whether he's coming off the bench or starting, he brings what the team needs in all of those needed moments. So moving forward, it doesn't even seem like it matters where Ime puts him in the lineup because it seems as though he's going to continue to perform. I think it'll just come to a point where I would imagine he'll want more starting minutes, and that's where it could get a little hectic if Jaylen is fully back and he's not getting as much time as he wants on the floor. But we don't know the future with Jaylen, so that's why it shouldn't even be relevant at this point.
Right, but not knowing the future is part of the issue. We don't know the future.
Exactly.
And Jaylen doesn't know the future. And you have to me the comfort food for the Celtics right now is knowing that without Jaylen, you got guys who've been able to step in.
It's still good,
but at some point, and Ime knows this, he's been around the league long enough to notice that when you are missing a key central figure on your team, there's going to come a game where all those backups are going to remind us why they backups. And the guy that's like one of your pillars who's not there, you're going to realize, damn, we've been kind of playing with house money, and now there's only so many rolls of the dice where you can get 7-11. There's only so many sevens you can roll. And at some point...
Is that unintended because his number is 7?
You like that? You see that?
You don't know. I don't think you actually thought about that. See? You didn't even know what you were saying.
So why did I say 7 and not 11?
Credit for that. Okay, because number 11 is not who we're talking about. But continue.
Okay, Kwani, you got the credit for that. I'll put that in your account that you get credit for that. Speaking of games,
the world sounds like it's ending outside of my window, but we move on.
I heard the weather in New England is not great right about now.
Oh my gosh, y'all keep me in your prayers. It's scary outside.
Kwani, you're gonna be all right.
I'm so dramatic.
You are way dramatic. But don't worry, it's all good. It's all good.
I'll let you continue. We were going to talk about Lakers. What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about your team, the Lakers. Nah, I'm just messing. Kwani's like, what? No, the Lakers, obviously, they got a bit of a scare last week when LeBron James entered COVID protocol. And lo and behold, LeBron, just like that,
magically.
back.
Wow.
Apparently, he took. I guess there was a false positive, and there's some results where the results were mixed, and he ultimately wound up from reportedly taking 8 tests within a very short period of time. I didn't realize that they could crank them out like that. And get you the results as quickly as they did. I mean, how many times have we seen, certain players on certain teams? We ain't gonna mention no names, Celtics.
Yeah.
We gotta wait forever the damn day
Right.
to get the results. And LeBron, it's like
he get magical.
it's like he got that TSA, fast track lane act going on where he don't gotta stand in line with the rest of us. Yeah, like he got that. I'm not gonna mention any other airlines in their fast track because they're not getting that plug. But
you're right. He
Yeah.
is the fast pass of the NBA. Whatever LeBron needs gets done. So why are we surprised that he was able to take 8 rapid tests and conveniently? And I'm not saying that it's not true, but if someone were to be a conspiracy theorist, this is the time where you shrug and scratch your head a little bit and try to figure out what's going on, because it just
because I'm thinking like, damn, 8
he's
tests.
always ready for Boston. Remember the last game? He was cleared the day of for that Celtics game. So I don't know. The NBA knows what they want.
LeBron gonna make damn sure. I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't know if he's ever missed a game against the Celtics since he's been in LA.
That's my point, because the NBA needs Boston versus LA. It could be the worst Celtics team in the world. It could just be LeBron carrying the team on their back. But the NBA, ESPN, ABC, all of these corporations want to have Boston, LA on their air. So it just seems really convenient that they always get those games. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
It's also interesting to hear LeBron grumble and gripe about the whole COVID protocol process. I always find that interesting because when the league comes up with these rules and regulations, who do they tell before they tell the media? The players.
Yeah.
This is what they do.
Right.
Now, whether you paid attention when they were telling you, whether you read the email, that's a different story. I can't answer that question. All I do know is there is an undeniable truth that you knew this is what they do. Now, because it affects you, it's not so good. Now it's something. I don't know if we do. Stop. It's you start to feel some of that. LeBron doesn't really understand the freedom that he has. Yes, Kwani. Yes, Kwani. You want credit for that one too?
No.
You want some bet online credit catching that one too?
Beautifully petty. The way you just did that. Oh wow, you got that. Which I think we should talk about freedom again.
Yeah, that's getting interesting. I tell you what, when we were in Portland, and obviously he played there, and so he already had a built-in fan base. But it was. I mean, Freedom Mania was running wild in Portland. There were 2 very distinct sections of the arena that had like a big, Enes Kanter flag, and I guess they didn't get the memo that he changed the name. But Enes, before the game, went up into the stands and actually talked to them and took pictures, and he did, and it was like, I get it, but
I'm remembering that this is a visual medium, so I'm making sure to control my facial reaction to this.
It's too late, Kwani. It's too late. You are so bad at that. You had to see. 10 minutes ago, you had the Academy Award, and now look at you. You
just lost it.
You just went off Broadway with this one. Before you was at before you were at you were at the spot. You were
talking to the fans. Continue.
Yeah. So he's talking to the fans, and he's doing that, and I'm I'm like up there with my camera taking pictures and tweeting about it, and I get what he's trying to do. I'm just not sure the way that he's kind of going about it is going to have the impact that he's looking for. Because ultimately, whether you agree with what he's doing, ultimately, I think we all want to see a lot of the social justice initiatives that he's fighting for come to fruition. And I'm not sure if the way that he's kind of going about it is the best way to do that. I mean, I like, he's talked a number of times about Nike and their role in all this, which, again, there's no argument about that. Yeah. But here's the funny part about that. You do know you got teammates who are getting checks from Nike.
Right.
And so it's like you want to put LeBron on blast about his connection with Nike, but you do realize that the roof that you under, the fellas that you rock with, some of them are kind of on the Nike payroll too. And so I haven't really got a sense of how he's been able to distinguish between those two factions other than they my teammates and he not. And if that's how you view it, okay, cool. I have no issue with that personally. But I do know if you're looking at this from the outside and you're thinking like, damn, he coming at Nike kind of hard. And you may agree with that, but you're not challenging your teammates in that process too. So it's a very complicated matter. There's no question about it. Lots of different layers to it. And I don't think that there is an absolute right way to do it and an absolute wrong way to do it. But to ask questions and try to get answers about just the process, I think that is fair game. When you are as outspoken on these particular issues as he is, I can't remember the last time, the last week where I haven't seen him on at least one major global network.
Exactly.
We're not talking about local. We're talking like
national television.
Yeah, and I'm not giving him any plugs because I ain't going to do that.
Yeah.
But we all know we've seen him on the various networks before.
Yeah. Someone on Twitter pointed out that one of his tweets where he was calling Jeremy Lin out, it said sent from iPhone, and one of the biggest platforms he's had right now is calling out China. iPhones, we all know, mostly are made in China. So how do you distinguish, like you mentioned, what you're going to stand behind, whether that be calling out Nike, calling out the Chinese government? There are so many different layers, like you mentioned. But another thing that I think he hasn't realized is that you can't keep going through these different routes of trying to call people out. The fact that he called out Jeremy Lin seemed way out of left field. Yes, Jeremy Lin is of Taiwanese descent, but he was born in California. Why are you calling out an American, Chinese American, so to speak, player, for not calling out their country? That seemed a little bit, that's like someone calling me out for Haiti having a dictatorship, or someone when they assassinated the president of Haiti. How can I, yes, there is, so much I could do vocally and, have that social activism, but I just think it's unfair for him the way he's calling out different athletes and kind of putting it on the onus on them. I do know we've talked about the fact that there are players that have said they wanted to be vocal. We mentioned last week how a lot of people came out of the NBA bubble and didn't necessarily show that support that they had for social justice. But the way that he's going about it, I think the best way to sum it up is Gary Washburn and Jamel Hill both wrote columns about the approach that he's taking. And Jamel specifically said that he's just letting himself be used. And I think a lot of the rhetoric that he has been spewing does seem to be as though he's being used. I watched one of his most recent appearances, and he's clearly reading something that a script someone had written for him, or whether he had written it himself to have notes. But it just seemed very strategic. I don't know what the end goal is for all of this, but it doesn't sit well with me because I just think that, again, there's so much activism that needs to be done in the U.S. as well. Calling out China, yes, that may be, make some kind of effort, but I don't know if it's going to solve the big picture problem of social justice that he's claiming to stand for.
Yeah, and I guess that's the one thing that I haven't heard as much of lately as I thought I would from him, and that is, since you are an American citizen now, I don't think it's a stretch to assume that you would be taking on some of the social justice causes within the country that you're a citizen of. And that doesn't mean you ignore what's happening in China. That doesn't mean you pretend as if some of those other issues aren't important, because they are. And he absolutely has every right in the world to speak out on those issues and try to draw as much attention. Because, again, the ultimate goal, I think, for all of us in some way, shape, or form is to bring about more equitable, fair treatment for all citizens, whether you're an American, whether you're, a 8-year-old, in China who's making 4 cents, for an hour making shoes for whatever company. But there has to be an acknowledgement that the country that you just officially signed up to be a part of, while great on lots of levels. I mean, when you start looking at the things that we can do in this country and you start stacking it up against other countries, I don't even think it's close. We have a great country, but let's not pretend this is utopia. Let's not pretend as if we ain't got some flaws. Let's not pretend as if we don't have some things that we need to get better at. And I think that's the impression that he's not really, I think, baking into his political agenda. It feels very much like the U.S. is perfect. We don't do anything wrong. China, you're bad. Turkey, all these other countries, you're bad. But in America, we're perfect. And that's just not reality.
And there should be a red flag when the same networks or people that told LeBron James to just shut up and dribble are all of a sudden applauding you as a patriot and a hero. He's made some really good points about the activism that he's trying to promote against China. The IOC actually just said, not the IOC, the US is actually putting a diplomatic ban on the Olympics that are coming up in 2022 as a result, not as a result of his protest, but as a result of the human rights issues that are going on there. But at the same time, again, there's so many different things that are going on in the United States that if one athlete can say something about Black people and having rights in the United States and they're being shut down for that, and then yet you're spewing out something that's completely different from that rhetoric and people are applauding you. I don't know. I just feel as though there should be some kind of alert system that says, why is it that everyone hates when LeBron James speaks up against racism, but then whenever you're coming at anybody else, it's okay? And that's the issue, I think, at the core of the United States. Not to get, too political on it, but it's not even politics. It's really just human rights. But people will make it into a political conversation because that's always how it ends up being.
Well, that's what we do as Americans. I mean, that's as American as America can be. So I don't subscribe to that. I don't like that, but I recognize that's who we are. And I guess that's kind of where it gets a little bit interesting for me, because I don't think that there's a full embrace of who we are as Americans. When Enes is talking about the United States, and again, he talks about a lot of the positives, and there are positives. There's absolutely no one is saying that this country is crap. No one is saying that.
I'm a child of immigrants. Of course, I'm grateful to be in the United States. But
I am not a child of immigrants, but I'm thankful for your immigrant parents, because if they didn't come here, you wouldn't be here.
That's true.
Kool-Aid grinning up in my little Zoom action here.
Right.
But again, I would like the conversation to be a little bit more wholesome, be a little bit more encompassing of some of the issues that are not only affecting outside of our country, but also within the framework. But speaking of issues,
yes.
Once the Celtics get done with the Lakers, they got the Clippers, who got some issues of their own. They're playing on Monday night. They're playing at Portland, and coming into that game, they have lost 3 of the previous 4. So that is another winnable game. And obviously, they close out the trip, at Phoenix. Not quite as winnable.
Right.
When I think about, what's the worst case scenario for you to have to finish out a West Coast road trip, this will be it, having to play Phoenix on the last game before you head back home. So that the Celtics, but again, I think the Celtics have done a lot of good things on this road trip, and I think they're going to find a way to come back with a winning road record. So they've got to win 2 of these last couple games, which I think they can absolutely win. I think they can sweep both LA teams, which again, I don't know how confident I would have been of that, let's say, a month ago.
Yeah.
But I feel really good about that. Even if LeBron has a LeBron-like game, I still think that team has enough flaws where they're beatable. And the Clippers,
that's why it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Clippers just aren't playing good basketball right now. And for the Celtics, you're playing this is the best kind of back-to-back, where you're literally in the same room, same hotel room. You ain't got to travel other than to do practice and back. That's it. You ain't got to get on a plane. You ain't got to pack toiletries. You ain't got to tuck away the little hotel shampoos in your bag and hit the road. You ain't got to do none of that.
I don't think they have to do
that.
Just let's be honest about that with them, okay?
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Durant reminded us you can always keep lotion nearby.
That's
just
true.
saying.
You're right.
I don't know how long it's going to be until I can look at Kevin Durant and not think, did he lotion today?
Goodness.
Did he moisturize? If anyone,
I hope he's not ashy.
It's a great chance for him to make some money. Let's be honest. If a lotion company said, KD, we got you.
Oh, these players you need to be like an agent, marketing manager, whatever.
Look, Easy Sniper can make easy money off of this one. And it will be funny. I mean, I already have the commercial in my head, and it's making me smile because it's so damn hilarious.
Capitalize off of this. Just like when Jason Tatum was trying to, well, when he was doing the Taco J thing, that was his first All-Star appearance. Taco Bell fumbled the bag with that one. They really could have had a big deal. And they didn't even, I don't even think they really pursued it.
No, they did.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah, and then you had a company like Ruffles over there looking allow us to introduce myself. Come with us.
That's wild. That's them.
Yeah,
that's
they dropped the ball in that. They absolutely did. But that being said, Celtics coming down the home stretch here, this West Coast trip, looking good, playing good basketball, even without Jaylen Brown, who will be back when, who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? But I'm with Ime on this one, and from the standpoint, I don't want him to come back any sooner than every test that you run to see whether he's good to go. I want to triple check every one of them. Yeah. I want to feel as though when he comes back that he has gone above and beyond the minimum for us to be comfortable with him returning, because he's so important to this team. When you get to the playoffs, you're going to need guys who can get their own shots. And no disrespect to Tatum, but Jaylen Brown is a better finisher at the rim than Tatum. Tatum is a better scorer. Tatum has a better, I think, all-around shot-making game. But in terms of getting downhill, getting to the cup, and finishing, Jaylen Brown is better. And they're getting good play out of Schroder in that regard. But I like the idea of having Schroder giving me that in a more limited capacity, because he's strength. Yeah, it makes him so much better. And Jaylen, if he continues to do what he do, things are going to look this team could really get things going and be a much bigger threat coming out of the East and going deep into the playoffs in the East than I think most people anticipate, especially after the kind of start they had. So,
but Jaylen shouldn't come back before he's ready, because God forbid he does, and that just continues to aggravate whatever issues he has. It's not worth it. If you want to make it to the playoffs and be strong in the playoffs, let him rest. I think this team right now can make it to the playoffs without him, so to speak. Not to say that he's replaceable, but I think if they can at least hold out until he's really fully back, then that would make, I think, a lot of sense.
It would make a ton of sense for them. So Jaylen, again, when he comes back, I'm not worried about him fitting back in, because I think he's seen enough of this team and what they're doing now to kind of recognize what he can bring to the table. And so I don't think that's going to be necessarily as big an issue as I think some people might think. I love what I'm seeing from Tatum. Tatum is recognizing he's giving the game what it needs. And what they need from him is to get other guys involved. Marcus Smart is taking fewer threes, and I think that in part is because he's getting the ball in his hands more. Whereas before, it's like, when he got the ball, it was just like, oh, damn, I need to take this shot because I don't know when I'm going to get this back. Yeah. Now
he's more. He's trusting his teammates a little more.
Yes, and that's part of the growth process for him. It's not going to be a straight up the mountain climb. I mean, there are going to be some bumps and bruises along the way. He's going to have some setbacks, but I think Tatum, when you look at where he was at the start of the season, you look at where he's at now in terms of recognizing how to get his teammates involved and just still being an elite scorer. I think he's trending in the right direction, but I would like to see him shoot the rock a little bit better than he is now. And I don't know whether that's because he's exerting so much more energy trying to get other guys shots, or whether it's just simply he's finally hit some type of shooting slump, something that he really didn't have much of up to this point in his career. So Tatum, he's the key to all of this. There's no getting around that. And I'm glad to see him, finally, I don't want to say finally. I'm glad to see him trending in the right direction and really giving some good stuff to the game. And speaking of good stuff, Kwani, what you got coming up for NBC 10? Now let's talk about good stuff.
Well, I don't. No, that's not. Doesn't count. Our next local lowdown is in Jamaica Plain.
Got that much stuff going on.
Yeah, because we're doing. I'll give y'all the priority. The priority is Jamaica Plain. That's the next place that I'm spotlighting. So if you follow me on Twitter and you have any spots, it doesn't have to just be food spots that you go to in JP, let me know. But until then, stay tuned, because that's going to be my next neighborhood that I feature. And I'm excited to get to know the people in the neighborhood of Jamaica Plain. That's
cool. Let's see. Bleacher Report. This is just crazy. I have a couple of features that I did on some players on the rise, and they're hurt. I will not tell you who they are, but needless to say, we had to put those stories in the freezer for a little bit and thaw them out when these guys get back. So we got some. It's like when you have a little too much turkey at Thanksgiving and you ain't going to eat it. So you just put it in the freezer and you thaw it out a little bit later.
Hopefully it tastes the same when it comes out the freezer.
Oh, that's, yeah, exactly. So hopefully we'll be able to thaw those out soon. Working on a couple different things for Ebony, one of which will be a movie review that will come out later this week. And one of the stars in the movie, which I believe it'll be on Netflix, is a Boston University grad. So I'll have actually. I'm not.
What movie is it?
I can't tell you. Tell you. It's coming out Friday. The actual movie Is
it a black movie?
It's a movie.
Oh my gosh!
It's got lots of different people in it, Kwani. It's a multicultural joint.
I just discovered this show on Amazon Prime and admittedly watched it in one day. It's called Harlem, and it has Megan Good in it, and it's phenomenal.
I'll check that out since you said the word.
I knew saying Megan Good would just
game changer. Oh,
yeah. I really liked that show. I hope they have a second season.
Okay, now and this was on Netflix?
No, it's on Amazon Video.
Okay,
Prime Video.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. Well, that is it for this week's A-List podcast. We will be back next week, hopefully on talking about an amazingly awesome West Coast trip for the Boston Celtics.
Or not.
But they're in good shape. I mean, they're only like 2 or 3 games. This is crazy. They're only like 3.5 games out of first in the East. So literally, they could have a strong finish to this week, and we could be talking about the first place Boston Celtics a week from now, which is mind-blowing.
People said the same about the Patriots, and look at them now. So
true. Mac Jones looking like, he like that dude, like one of them Jones boys. He's feeling like he's killing it. But the game's a little bit closer now, and it'll be a close game at the end. I fully expect that, because Buffalo's a good team. So anyway,
he's still one. Okay,
exactly.
Well,
Sherrod Blakely, Kwani Lunis. This is the A-List podcast, and we will see you and talk to you next week. We're out.